What if the very patterns that keep someone stuck in trauma are also the doorway to their deepest transformation? Welcome to Break Free from the Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Anastasia Chopelas, physicist turned energy healer, and I'm here to help you make the quantum shifts to release the hidden blocks to your success. Your next breakthrough starts now. Today's guest is Dr. Kirsten Viola Harrison, a trauma psychologist and a spiritual integration expert who has spent over 25 years helping people navigate complex PTSD, dissociation, and profound psychological and spiritual transitions. She brings a rare blend of clinical depth and compassionate soul work to reveal what true lasting healing actually looks like. You've worked with some of the most complex trauma cases, and I've been looking you up to see what's going on, like PTSD, dissociation, schizophrenia, near-death experiences. What first drew you into this depth of work, and what did you begin to see that most traditional models were missing?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I would say what drew me in was just the good old-fashioned art of human relating. It started with an early relationship. I would think that I was on a pretty linear path. I was going to go to Georgetown and I was going to become an international lawyer like my parents thought. And I had a boyfriend in high school, eventually became my first husband, who had been adopted by a very well-meaning family in Minnesota. And he had been in an orphanage for 5 years in Colombia, South America, and had a lot of abuse. And I didn't know anything about that at the time. It was really heart-wrenching to watch him struggle with PTSD that was unnamed, and it was showing up in all different ways. And eventually that became just my calling, where I was like, I feel like the more that people can attune to this greater healing energy as a force for good in life, and how we manifest that through our different relationships on the daily, that is what's going to ultimately be the most soul fulfilling for me. I knew that was my path then. So of course I went to study psychology, then did a little veer into medicine and went back into psychology. And in that time, serendipitously, my brother died tragically in an accident when I was 22. And it catapulted my learning in the sense of all of a sudden near-death experiences and what people had survived trauma on a very deep level without those overlaps, and that bridge generated was starting to just captivate my interest, and I couldn't let go. It was a passionate pull to know deeper and further and listen to voices in the margins that I'd never paid attention to before. And I have to say, we're talking 80s, and not a lot of people were starting to bridge these gaps. These weren't in the common vernacular like they are now. So I started a lot of esoteric conferences, and I just started finding a voice over time. This was my calling.
Yeah, I know. I felt the pull to science when I was 7, if you can believe it. And
Oh my goodness.
yeah, and if people would ask me, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I say, oh, I'm going to be a scientist. And they go, don't you want to be a mommy? Don't you want to be a teacher? No, no.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, I'm not going to be the sidekick, because this was in the 50s, of course. And in the 50s,
Yes.
there were no role models. The role models, like if you watched a 50s TV show about science, the women were bringing the coffee and were the side
Yeah.
pieces. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing
Yeah. So
that you felt that at 7.
just for people to know that when you feel that pull towards something, it's like the trauma is a very difficult thing to treat, because you're in the place where that person is at their worst, and to be able to help them without getting pulled into where, their energy is down, without getting pulled into that must be, that to me seems like a real talent. Yes.
It's definitely a challenge. It's an art in and of itself to
Yes.
learn that compassion and to be able to navigate that pull, but at the same time, use your head and pull back enough that you can really be helpful. So both of you don't land in the abyss and that murky muck of trying to figure it out. which is helpful to go in the murky muck. You want to know what it feels like on some level, but you also have to be able to have that kind of, that's where we bring in terms like the internal self-helper that helps the client see the much bigger picture, but also acts as that bridge to some other space, that other domain of like ultimate knowing, because sometimes two humans going in there, you can get a little lost if you don't
Yeah,
keep
you
that
can.
much greater like meta perspective. Yeah.
And I mean, it takes empathy, but you have to also be able to pull that empathy back and realize
Yeah.
that you can't match the energy that they're feeling. You can't match the trauma because we women
Yes.
tend to want to match and mirror each other. And
Yes.
that's a skill in itself.
But you have to learn to trust that a greater wisdom is guiding.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of non locality, I would love to understand your version of that as a physicist. But there's so much healing that works through us if we can just become an ultimately beautifully cleared out vessel to be able to allow that healing to work its magic and not overly identify with, a polarity of I'm so compassionate in my heart, but I'm blocking because I want to heal so badly, or I've got this like cognitive frame that I want somebody to fit into. It's be open and then allow that wisdom, but then recognize it when it's coming through your body or your heart, and then be able to put that forward.
Yes. So, in your experience, what is complex PTSD really doing
Okay.
beneath the surface? Not just the symptoms, but the deeper pattern or intelligence behind that most people don't recognize.
So I would say I don't malign these symptoms in the way that some people might, because they feel like it's so disruptive to their regulation or to their daily functioning. However, there's such a deep listening that it's begging for. Understand that hyperarousal, hypervigilance, startle response, these are all part of the trauma that still is saying, hey, there's a little something here still that we need a noticing and we need some resolution because it's not completely safe yet. And that's something that we really need to pay attention to. And then in order to resolve that, learn the skills and adaptable things that can make us realize it's going to always be there if we need it, but we don't need to have it operating in the foreground and like in the whole gestalt in the fore all the time.
Yep.
And I think that would be the goal.
Yep.
Not trying to get rid of it. You're
Yep.
trying to have it. You're just trying to thank it and say, thank you so much for alerting me to the fact that even when I walk down my neighborhood street, yeah, there could be danger. I'm happy to know that. But I want to feel safe enough that I don't avoid the walk because there could be danger, when in reality, we're just putting it completely out of proportion. So it's just locking it back into its kind of more proper functional
Yes.
place.
Yeah. As a healer, I am energetically sensitive to people. I can
Yeah.
connect with them no matter where they are in the
Yeah.
world. And so I
Oh,
do the same thing that you're doing is that I
yeah.
can reach in, feel them, and
Yeah.
then pull right
Yeah.
back out. So I know what they're
Yeah.
feeling. I know where their pains are. I know what their emotional state is. And
Yes. Yes.
yes,
Yes, I would say so. In psych terms, we were always taught that it was something called projective identification, which is if you're in a session and all of a sudden you just feel so sad and you don't know why because you're having a good day, but the client's not able to own their sadness, you're going to feel it. But then you have to identify it, realize that it's not yours to own, but then try to understand from the inside out the compassionate response or the line of inquiry or questioning that would then help draw that out for them safely. And so we're speaking the same language in terms of something's happening in that field, that togetherness field, and we are picking up on, which is how we go about learning how to translate it and how to then mirror it back and give it compassionately back so that somebody can heal.
yes. And people don't realize that our hearts are where we radiate emotions and they can be
Yeah.
felt electronically, can be measured up to
Yes.
25 feet away.
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
going to absorb it, and unless you know what to do, unless you're aware, like I'm hyper
Yeah.
aware,
Yeah.
and I can block it really easily. Everybody can
Yeah.
block it, so if they
Yeah.
want to. So many of the people listening are healers and wellness practitioners who look like
Mhm.
they have it together but feel exhausted, stuck, or not fully expressed. How often do you
Yeah.
see unresolved trauma or dissociation quietly driving burnout or limiting their impact?
It's ironic because I did need to take a good 10 years off. I think it was because I was raising little ones and I found that my filtering capacity was diminished in terms of hearing very severe trauma at work and then knowing that my daughters wanted to play and I couldn't quite draw that balance the way that I needed to be able to give the best to both worlds. And so I had to pull away from it for a little bit. So there's that. If you're really feeling that level of burnout, you're not helping anybody by trying to push through. It's not something you can really push through. But that being said, when you realize that the ultimate universal energy is benevolent and that you really trust that something unseen really is caring for you and holding you, and that it wants to work its way through you, and everybody wants to be able to find a way to heal communally in the collective. And that when you trust that, then it's not as much yours to have to hold anymore. And it helps prevent some of those classic symptoms of burnout. That'd be my experience.
And my next question was about blending trauma psychology with spiritual integration, and that sounds exactly like what you were just saying. And so where do you see people getting stuck when they focus only on one side, either purely clinical or purely spiritual?
I will say, again, it's a deep sense of listening and honoring and witnessing the human to human. We can't script it. We used to have something in the hospital for severe trauma that was called an anger room. And it was this padded room, your typical anger room type of things. But every single time I would go in with a client, within 2 minutes of punching the walls, they would just start crying. And it was like some of the therapists had an agenda. They wanted to work through these different things with anger, but I just let it be what it was. And the sadness was really driving so much of it, and the grief and the most profound shifts that happen when we're aligning our energies and people feel safe is where the magic happens, and it's letting spirit flow through. And to me, that's what healers do when you're giving a massage, and it's a deep massage and it's eliciting some sort of like body response in somebody that, is this somatic opening and then somatic healing. It's who that person is and how they're bringing that healing to the fore. That's way more important than the technique or the framing or the cognitive restructuring. So that's how I would say the overlap is happening, is trust. That energy field that we're extending outward is so incredibly important and healing. And it's not about doing. When we're taught and we're younger, we're a little insecure about our skills. We're so focused on how we're doing something, we're forgetting about how we are being and how we are co-creating in that space.
Yeah, I always say we're human beings, not human doings.
Yes, very true. We hear it, but it's really get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you just said about that, is that getting stuck is letting it go. A lot of people, when I work with their emotions, I do a release process with them, and then they go, why was I that way? And what caused it? And I go, it doesn't matter. Just let it go.
That is so true. That is so true. And that's the same. So when you're raising kids, it's about attuning, misattuning, reattuning. And it's the repair happens in all those subtleties and those subtle shifts. So it's not that you have to be attuned all the time or really get it or have the perfect healing touch or whatever. It's about when these sort of things start to shift, are you then able to recalibrate, reshift back in there and then be able to join and let it go together? And that witnessing is the healing, and that joining is the healing. And when we're not in direct communication or alignment with another human, remember that whole universe of healing energy is out there for us. I can't tell you the amount of really severely spiritually also abused clients that had gone through the worst, like satanic ritual abuse, that things that you wouldn't even believe. And yet when they somehow found somebody that just really held space with them to find that courage and find that ability to trust and heal again, the journey was incredible. I would hear the most horrific stories, yet be the most uplifted person on the planet when I was done with the day, because I felt like, oh my goodness, we just created a whole new space, a whole new capacity for letting joy in to somebody's life. And
it's like, the way I describe it is, we start out as this little seed and the tree of decisions grows up. So we have all these branches and we're sitting over here on this branch. And the healing process is, if you had made those decisions, you're now, or you had these events happen, you're on that branch. And the healing is like an instantaneous winking out here and
Yeah.
coming into being here, it's as if the other stuff had never happened. That's what, to me, the way I view healing. But it's, we
Yeah.
don't have to dwell on the past,
Yeah.
because when I
You're
look
trying
back,
to get that nourishment coming up through the whole trunk. And
yes,
that's what we help facilitate, the different roots, the different
yes,
ways that we can take in the nourishment, where the blocks are. Like,
yeah,
it's vital.
and a lot of times I'll think about, because I've had some trauma and some abuse in my life, and when I think about those times, I don't think about them ever anymore, because
Yeah.
my life is so joyful and fun
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what creates the extra youthful state, is that I'm always in a
Yes.
state of wonderment and happiness and
Uh,
joy, and enjoy every minute of every day. That
yes.
when people say work,
Yeah.
my daughter will say, "Mom, you work all the time." And I'll go, "This is fun."
Yeah. And the reality is, most of us who have gone into some sort of healing profession, there's some dark stuff we had to work through to get to the point where we could so embrace the light, let it in, feel full of gratitude for waking up, feel full of gratitude. I wake up, I open the slider, the birds, it's people go, "What is wrong with you? What are you on?" And it's no, this is from going through some really hard stuff and just saying, I got to wake up today, like bottom line. And so then I want to give that sense to somebody else who might be having a little harder time. But when I was in my kind of, I would call it not burnout part, where I had to take a break, and it was more like the pre-phase where I was hanging on too tightly and trying to pretend to myself that I wasn't stretched to the edge. That's when it was like I had to guard my energy so carefully, because I felt like I only had a speck of it left. And that's a sign, when you're able to be magnanimous with your energy, and just, that's a sign of balance. And that, for me, that's okay. My well-being is restored. I needed to do the reparative things to make that happen, so I could then be an open vessel again for others. And so I think it's just that attunement. And some of us were raised in eras where it's not okay to take time for yourself, because you're supposed to be there for everybody else unconditionally. And it's like, it's necessary to take care of yourself. I'll give permission right now.
Right,
You
that's
do
women
so much more.
training. That
Yes,
we women
true.
all got trained to do what everybody
Yes.
else says, obey, and
Yes.
and I,
No, thanks.
yeah, and I always said that I for a long time I'd say, why was I born female? I like science, I like sports, I don't like keeping house, I don't want to cook or clean. I just want somebody, I need a housewife.
Yeah. Oh, I used to say that all the time. Please, I need a wife. But the reality is, maybe part of how you got to where you got, though, was because you weren't a born male, and it would have just been the expected in that. So I can resonate with that. I also feel like professionally, when you start to go a little bit more on a limb and you start to bridge things that other people haven't quite maybe put together yet, or isn't quite accepted or mainstream yet, that we're much more apt to be labeled, "Oh, she's gone a little out there. She's starting to follow too many weird clients out on this weird road." And it's no, I'm just able to
Yeah.
use my capacity for intuition and empathy to hear what they're saying, because what they're saying actually happened to them. And then what, they are a guide in the healing. It's like when you go to a physician, they say that the best physicians let you be your own healer. They listen to 80% is the person coming in saying, "I already know what's wrong with my body." It's just that last 20% that then they can really dig into and say, "But in my clinical experience or in the research, it shows XYZ." And I feel like that's something that is beautiful about us being connected. And it can be a male that's disconnected, a female that's disconnected, but staying open and attuned to that is where the beauty of everything lies. And I stopped being scared of some of the dark stories that my clients would bring, because I realized that if we could work through that together, the light that we were both able to seek was that much more magnificent,
Yes.
because we braved forward.
Yes, because for every shadow, the light has to shine somewhere for the shadow
Yes.
to show
Yes.
up. Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
So when someone comes to you with complex trauma, what does real
Correct.
healing look like in practice?
So to me, it's a journey, and it's definitely two people showing up session after session trying to brave through this inexplicable. I definitely defer to my clients about their own experience. I don't feel like I would know what that was like just because this is what I've heard a few times or whatever. And I let them lead and I let them take me places where I need to understand and then create that bigger, like, holding field to then also both of us throwing our hands up going, we don't even know what to make of that. And then all of a sudden the answers come or the healing starts to come because spirit is all around at all times. And the other part is with a lot of these clients that have really been severely tested as children, all of my belief from years and years and years of doing this, 35 plus years, is that there is some sort of archetypal self-care system that is universal in origin. We have the energy that we're tapping into in that quantum field, as you are an expert in. And so they
We're
would
in
say
it.
that,
We're
yeah,
in the quantum field. Yes.
and then the whole like access to that, what they call liminal space, whatever. So one of my wonderful mentors, he just passed away at 94, I think. Dr. Ralph Allison was the first to talk about the spiritual side of multiple personality, which used to be called, which is now DID, dissociative identity disorder. And he would talk about how a child's system is so overwhelmed by these traumas that the actual original personality goes up into a place he called thought space, where it's being taught and downloaded by these celestial energies. And they really like school this oversoul type to come back down and then be able to have an internal self-helper orchestrate the healing. So the way it manifests in therapy is that all of a sudden there might be a child state hiding under your table and you're trying to connect. And then all of a sudden this very wise, oversoul type of energy appears in the room. And it's almost like the expansive state is just, you're just awed by it. And you're like, aha, that is the healing energy coming through and all the wisdom. So it takes it above what's going on in the really traumatic, like reliving or re-experiencing. It takes it so beyond that and puts it in its proper kind of like meta perspective. And then you use that if you're a skilled clinician, you can use that to be able to then guide certain aspects of the therapy. And then it becomes about, can we do this containment? Can we have these two parts of self co-conscious and starting to interact? Then all that happens. But really what's really happening is this much bigger guiding wisdom that we can allow through.
Yeah, so that's where I see this, understand the parts of themselves that they pushed away, but not as something broken, but as something that holds power or protection and healing.
Yes. Yes. And they're not, of course, as a young child, they're not conscious of any of this. They're not conscious of pushing it away. But it's a way that I see it in a very benevolent way, is that this big spiritual kind of like wonderfully protective sort of pull is happening that then says, okay, like here, we're going to give you a little respite. I can't tell you the amount of clients I've had that said, I was playing on the playground with my angel mommies when that happened, or my angel mommy held me in her hand. And so that is what they're experiencing. And then that's that benevolence kind of coming in and saying, okay, that's a little too much for the body right now. It's too much for the mind. But then while the child's parts of self are up there, obviously in the quantum, like in the different energy, they are getting this more connected, just like wisdom that then can flow through. And then just like people who come back from near death experiences and they start to tell the doctors, my liver needs this and this is going on. It's like, how do they know that? It's because some other energy was then starting to help be a guide. So I think my version of therapy and healing has a lot to do with being able to open back up to hearing those original voices and really gleaning that wisdom and strength and being able to then put it into the day-to-day when we're back in the muck of our cognitive processes and our bodies that aren't working right or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge.
We operate from a feeling place, and humans operate from a feeling place, but we've been pushed into a thinking place, and that thinking place is not where it happens.
Yes. What's interesting, though, is that the people who describe near-death experiences and being in the other realm, or however you would say that as a physicist, talk about how everything is just, your thoughts are immediately, you don't have to use language. You don't really have to think because things are downloaded right into you. And it's just this awareness that comes together. And so I feel like that is so our untapped intuition. It's just these energy states that we push away by overthinking or sometimes even overfeeling, because one of the aspects of that realm, and I see it in therapy when that wise kind of like oversoul starts to really guide the therapy, it's not super emotional and it's not, it's got a different quality to it.
Yes, it
And so,
does. I have to say,
yeah,
I've been there many times. So let me just blow your mind for a minute about
yes,
the quantum field and what quantum reality is.
okay,
So in that quantum field is just a field of information, and we're condensed from one set of information. But all of
okay,
the lifetimes we've ever lived are
yeah,
there running simultaneously, and it happens, it's an instant. There's no time, no space on that side. So that
uh-huh,
means that here on our reality that we're living, it's a sequential time, where in the reality of the quantum field, it's parallel time. So everything is
yes,
happening at once. And if we
yeah.
travel at light speed, we can see the
uh,
entire universe at the same time.
Oh, I find that so fascinating. People like Dr. Anita Moorjani, a famous near-death experiencer, she tries to talk about that and how space and time, that whole thing as we know it, collapses. And
Yes.
that, yeah, and the people who talk about near-death experiences, there's no equivalent to time. It feels so infinite when they're in
Yeah.
that realm.
The
But then
the
here in
two
this
halves of
time,
the two halves of the brain operate. So the left side operates sequentially and the right side operates in parallel.
okay,
S- So,
fascinating.
so
Okay.
people that have had strokes, there's one woman who
Yeah.
was a psychobiologist or something
Uh-huh.
in that realm. She had a stroke on the logical side, and she said
Okay.
time ceased to exist for her. She had no idea what time it was or how long time had
Mhm.
passed, and she knew that having a stroke, she knew somewhere inside herself she needed to get help right away, but she just
Oh
couldn't
my
get to it because the time was meaningless to her. So it's
And
really
that,
interesting.
people who dissociate say the same thing. It's either that if they're like in a depersonalized, derealized state, like time feels like frames, like a movie frame, or time, just the whole dimension of time just like expands, dissolves, like just creates this different thing. So obviously, dissociation is tapping into a whole nother part, a temporal lobe things.
Yeah,
It's
well,
linked to, when people talk about auras, it's all
yeah,
kind of,
we can create that momentarily. If you,
yeah.
like when I do painting, I have done a lot of oil paintings and
Uh-huh.
drawings and things like that. And as soon as I get into the state of creativity, the time can just go like that. 2 hours feels like five
Yeah.
minutes.
Yes.
So we
I
can
like
create
that.
that during a highly creative period. It doesn't matter what. It could
Yeah.
be writing a book, it could be writing a song, it could be singing a song. Anything that's highly creative, the time just runs by so quickly because you're in that right brain space
Is
of
that
creativity.
akin to a flow state? Is that
Yeah,
using that same right brain?
it's the what people call the flow state.
Yeah. Oh, I just love it. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
The kinds of things that you bring to all of this is just incredible, because so many of the answers when people ask me things and I'm like, okay, I know a certain amount, but I can't go past that. It's like just waiting for somebody like you with all of your training and integration to
Yeah.
just answer
Well,
some of these questions.
I'm always fascinated by people that have studied the psychology, which to me is a softer science than what I
Yes.
did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not something that I engaged in, it's just something I experience. And
Yeah.
because of my own design and nature, I don't
Yeah.
experience it on the same level.
And the rhythm of what you thought of intuitively marching, things like that, they just do something that kind of makes something lock in.
Yeah, for someone listening who suspects
Yeah.
there's a deeper layer of trauma affecting their energy, clarity, or success, what's one or two things they can
Yeah.
begin doing right now to start restoring their internal coherence?
I would say, first of all, just give it up to the universe in the sense that you are ready for some higher, deeper wisdom and healing come through to you. Being able to surrender to that kind of, there is something there. It is helpful and benevolent, and it wants to see me work through this and heal. When we can start with that as the baseline, there's an openness there. And then, the answer to start to find the certain kinds of therapies or to start to online go, it just starts to feel like, okay, maybe I actually can have a little bit of hope, a little bit of faith that this might be a possibility in my life that I could heal. And know that there are people, as much as they want healing, there are people who want to help facilitate that, because it is our human imperative to realize that we're all in this together and that we want to be able to rise each other up in different ways. And I can't tell you, it's just like with kids. My clients have taught me more than I've ever taught them. My kids have taught me more, and not being ashamed to seek the help, trying to not keep creating more blocks between you and the possibility of getting that help.
And there's always a danger. Like, I've always been highly competent, like I got always good grades and all that stuff.
Yes.
And the thing is that when I started to ask for help, that's when things really changed.
Yes. And it is scary because, of course, a couple steps forward, a couple steps back, and people are scared of that. Oh no, my life is just barely hanging on. How can I? What they don't realize is that by letting it in, it's like taking a huge breath when you're running this like insanely like grueling marathon. It's like by stopping for a second and having that water or whatever, that's when everything resets, and then you'll have more energy in the end. So being able to go, okay, if this is an inkling that's starting to come up for me, my relationships will not only survive this, but they will get much more deep and expansive, much more fulfilling, because there's no more blocks to joy and love. Because as you're trying to tune out the trauma, you're also tuning out all the joy and the possibilities and happiness. So it's like we get this vice grip into our lives and starting to just open that up a little bit, that there is something beautifully magical about allowing back in the possibility of hope. And that's huge. People are so scared of hope because they want it so badly, but to hope, it means that they could also invite the fear of it, the vulnerability, and not having it happen for them. But I'm here to tell you, it is going to happen. The more you can push through that and just trust, the more faith you can eventually have, and the more joy.
Yeah, I remember a bumper sticker when in the 70s, I was still in college, and it said, "I feel so much better now that I've given up hope."
Oh, that's a good one.
Right, because the hoping means you keep pushing towards a solution, and when you start and you finally go, "Oh, it's okay the way it is now." And then that's when things start to transform. At least that's been in my experience.
I do love what you're saying, because there is a level of acceptance. When you can stop fighting it and accept as is, then it does open something. We're getting at it from different roads, but to me, hope is, as long as I have hope. I was diagnosed in 2019 with something that they thought gave me a year to live. I had to say goodbye to my kids. It was horrendous. I still had teenagers, and it ended up not after a biopsy, which was only a 2% chance that it was this other thing. And it happened to fall in the 2% chance, like that it was this other disease. I still have a cancer, but it's not what they thought. And I just remember just that feeling of hope flooding back in. Oh my gosh, I might survive. And that then was the opening to everything. And so I feel like there's always hope as long as we're drawing a breath. Read Anita Mortani's work, because she was at the very edge of death with all these huge tumors, and then had a near-death experience, and her tumors just shrank, and here she is.
Yes, there are actually quite a number of people like that. I was sitting on an airplane, and I was just beginning to explore my probing people, and I sat next to this woman, and she just seemed really nice. And I go, okay, let me test to see, does she have cancer? And I came up with a yes. And I'm going, oh my God, what do I do now? And a few minutes later, she says, yeah, 8 years ago, they diagnosed me with an incurable cancer, and they said I had 4 months to live, and here I am 8 years later.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Stories of spontaneous healing, remission, and even just people who are just, I have an attorney friend who deals with all estates and trusts, and she said the amount of people that she had that thought they were passing in a year or whatever, made all these estate plans, and she's 10 years later, they're traveling, they've had stage 4 something forever. It's not over till it's over.
No, and and I'm Greek. My first language is Greek and everything. And there's one of the 5 blue zones in the world is on an island called Ikaria. Yes, in Greece. And a gentleman that got a diagnosis of lung cancer.
Oh my gosh, I was just thinking of him when you were talking.
Yes.
I moved back to Ikaria. Yeah.
He moved back to Ikaria and he started doing all the things he used to do when he was young and being with his friends and his neighbors and his family. And the way the Greeks live, I know because I grew up with it. And they go out every night with their friends and they're always laughing and joking and loving each other. And he became cured. And I think I think Robin Cousins did the same thing. He had a laugh therapy that healed him. So these letting go of stuff, he gave up hope and he just says, I'm just going to do what I want now.
Yes.
It doesn't matter anymore.
I think that Anita Moorjani does a good job of talking about if somebody does pass, like, then that is how it's supposed to be, so that people don't feel like, oh, I failed, or my husband didn't try hard enough to stay in this realm, or he didn't release this. It's not about that. What it's about is what your own like imperative, what is coming through for you in your soul. What are you feeling like, hey, like this is really important for me right now to just open one more little portal here and just like for me, I used to be addicted to reading every medical book, journal. I have a master's in biomedical sciences, so I would just constantly be researching food as medicine, whatever. But I also started to realize that was giving me so much stress at the same time that it was healing, because I was like needing it. Whereas when I just went, hey, I'm going to go out and live life, spend time with my friends, go do these things, enjoy my kids, not get caught up in all their anxiety about exams or whatever. When I was able to do that, then I might have a moment that got downloaded into me where I was like, oh, go research that article because that might be helpful. But it wasn't this like tight grip. And I would say to anybody, I know it's so scary to loosen that grip, but that is where life is, when we can loosen that a little bit. Start to accept, start to see that there with different eyes, that there are more possibilities. It's so scary. Trust me, been down that road so many times. I avoided doctors for years after that because I was so terrified that any doctor was going to say, oh, just kidding, you are really dying again. Like, so I avoided it. I'm like, okay, that's not the answer either.
That's a programming. That's like a programming curse energetically onto people.
Yes.
And so there's 2 kinds of people that say, oh, the doctor is God, and they proclaimed I won't live past 2 months, and then 2 months to the day they die. And my mom was the opposite.
Okay.
So she was obstinate, and people that knew her, but they always called her the Greek princess because everybody did her command kind of thing. And she had a spinal surgery when she was 37, and they gave her a 5-year prognosis, 5 years of life. And they had to break open the spinal column. They had to break it open. They had to open 4 bones in the back and pull out this long tumor and cyst. And so it compromised her a little bit, and they said she would be quadriplegic, but she was fully functional except for these 2 fingers here. They just hung there. And she could only operate 3 fingers, and she didn't have any hot cold on her hands.
Wow.
But she lived 45 years and not 5 years.
See, exactly. Yeah. And that all makes a lot of sense. It resonates a lot with the people that I've heard near-death stories from, and just how there's like this decisional point, and it's usually when they're having a near-death experience. Do I come back? Do I want to come back? Am I ready? Do I need to?
A lot of people don't want to.
And a lot of people don't want to, but it also affects those of us that are in this realm, or however you would say.
Yes.
Because it's almost like there is something that's like this narrative going on in their soul where it all starts to click. And then they're like, yeah, I think I'm good. I'm good.
I think I'm good. Yeah, like I want to keep going, right? It's too good down here.
And oh my gosh, you have so much wisdom and knowledge and lived experience, and also the healing skills. I feel like we need you down here.
Thank you. Where do people find you?
SoulWiseSolutions.com is my it's where everything about a book I wrote with somebody who is homeless. It's everything about what I do just inspiring stories. So soulwisesolutions.com. And then if people are curious about this journey from this person who was homeless and now is thriving and post PTSD, surviving, post PTSD, thriving, then they can look up Soulwise Team on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, I'll put the link to the book in the show notes.
Thank you for having me. This has been just wonderful.
Yeah, you're most welcome. This conversation reveals how even the most complex trauma patterns can become a pathway to integration, clarity, and fully embodied power when approached with both science and soul. Thank you for joining us on Break Free from the Burnout. Did today's program resonate with you? Give it a thumbs up or 5-star rating, share it with your friends, and be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future episodes. When you're ready to bring more harmony and alignment into your relationships, check out my free 5-step relationship healing protocol at scientifichealer.com/relationship. Resources and show notes are available at breakfreefromtheburnout.com. Until next time, I'm Dr. Anastasia Chopelas, sending you golden healing light and success vibes to becoming aligned, confident, and prosperous. Your gifts are so needed in this world.